Setting up meeting. Looks like we are live once again, streaming on Facebook on a Monday night, 7 p.m. Facebook Live, 3D Politics. It's the most amazing show on Mondays at 7. Tommy McCay right here with 3D Politics live on Facebook. I've got David Van and David Oldham both with me once again to discuss all the important national, international, and global issues that shape our lives here in Oklahoma. And if you've never joined us before, you'll know that David Van is, of course, the leader and amazing person there at Soonerpolitics.org. And, of course, David Oldham, constitutionalgrounds.com. And me, Tommy McCay, right here at 3D Politics Live. Try to take this glare out. Anybody got any personal news? You want to talk about
I have an observation.
Yeah.
David Oldham has the biggest fingers I've ever seen.
Wow. Small feet, though. Very small feet. Hear.
I'm going to quit. I'm going to quit trying to do this and you just sit back and not have anybody talking about my feet and my hands. It's not a presidential debate.
Wireless keyboard, Oldham. It's called wireless.
I know. I didn't get mine out. I've been so busy. I just didn't get it out so that I could have it and deal with it.
Gosh.
I'm going to get up here in a minute and get it.
We've been away for so long that we come in fighting and everybody's jealous of Oldham, so we take shots at him every chance we can.
I don't know why.
We're going to talk about. I have a couple of comments. I want to coin a new phrase tonight, and there's the Tanzania story about kicking the WHO out of there. The World Health Organization got kicked out of Tanzania. If you can believe that. And there's a New York De Blasio's increasing his team of social distancing ambassadors. And what else have you got? Well, if that's what you call them, there's only two things wrong with Nazis. That is, they're nationalists and they're socialists. That's the only two things wrong. Yep. And then Van, what have you got also?
Of course, we're talking about the Trace Act, and Oldham's got a lot on that. The census. We got to talk about what's the good, what's the bad. What should we comply with, and what do we have no business complying with?
Right.
Yep. And we have court updates and the courthouse updates. Two separate issues. Oh, and one other thing, I would rather sit there like Oldham with a bald eagle behind me than have Joe Biden behind me.
That's true. That's true. I mean, an eagle may peck you in the back of the head, but at least he's not going to sniff your hair.
Oh, wow. Good thing you're not a fish, Oldham. I do like the background, though. Yeah.
And what David mentioned, the Trace Act. It is HB 6666 of all things.
Must be godly.
It is in Congress. It is the Trace, Reach, and Contact Everyone Act. Yep. And the idea is they are trying to set up a situation whereby you basically will have to get permission in order to leave your house, and we're going to look at that a little bit.
We're going to do the hard sell on that right now while they've got the kids as soft as they can, because they're only going to get backlash in the future. Yeah. But what are the other headlines? Anything else?
A little bit on Bynum, Mayor Bynum in Tulsa, and some of the things he's still not giving up the fight on taking his responsibility over the police department and passing the buck to somebody else.
Shame on him.
He's still trying that, huh?
Yep.
Still going to try.
Yeah, he's still shaming us citizens as well for not kowtowing to the federal CDC guidelines, which Birx herself, Dr. Birx, the scarf queen, doesn't even believe anymore.
Oh, that's another thing.
That's a good one.
Well, no, that's Limbaugh.
I know she's always got a new scarf on every time you see her.
That's Limbaugh. Limbaugh calls her scarf queen. I just am identifying her so we know who we're talking about.
Over the weekend, Dr. Fauci announced that, sadly, he's going to have to go into quarantine, to which Oldham and I say, take your time.
Let's, just hope he doesn't come out. But hey,
Will Rogers says about Congress. He says, I wouldn't mind these overseas trips by Congress. The problem is they keep them back home.
Maybe drawn, quartered, and quarantined, something like that.
Yeah. He can just take retirement after this one. As far as
I can hardly withstand my excitement. I know I'm going to get started here. Van, for many years now, has talked about the citizen journalist. Isn't that what you call them?
Absolutely.
Correct.
Citizen journalist. And what? No, well, we have a counter to that. And the counter to that is the phrase I want to coin is the citizen tyrant. And the citizen tyrant, this is going to lead us to the social distancing ambassador, is essentially a citizen tyrant. But I was on, I go to Facebook and social media and Twitter, and I scroll through and I look to be triggered. I don't go searching for anything, but if something stupid enough pops up, I could comment on anything. That's how brilliant I am.
Yes.
But it's only until something rises to the level of stupidity that I feel like I've really got to step in. So some gal who's, high and mighty, she takes a picture of a kid on the back of a motorcycle. What is he, 12, 10 or something like that? No helmet or whatever. But here's a guy riding his kid around on a motorcycle, and her busybody there getting on social media. Oh my God, where are the cops? And then of course of all the other social media citizen tyrants come rushing in. Why didn't you, where are the cops? Why didn't you get their license plate? I'm like, dude, so I come as a professional parent with 5 perfect children over the last 3 years, and I'm like, let me just tell you how to get out of, my business, okay? So I mentioned, how there's probably a right or a wrong way to do your feminine hygiene, or it's probably none of my business. And so we got into a little Facebook spat, but a whole group of citizen tyrants, Van, what's your comment?
I think I've met this woman. Is her name Karen?
No.
Okay.
No.
Well,
she might be a Karen.
Explain what a Karen is for
somebody.
I
don't do Lion King.
Okay. Well, Karen
is. Tiger King.
See, this is the thing of social media, that they come up with this caricature and give this person a name. And unfortunately, women have been hit with this most because you've got the Beckys and you've got the Karens and you've got the Donnas.
Oh, really? This is news to me.
Yeah, the Karens are the one that are currently the issue with most people. The person who's a busybody. Imagine the 7th grade English teacher, the woman who's been bossing kids around, and now she's got withdrawal symptoms because she hasn't had a classroom of kids to boss
she's
around.
Retired.
So she walks down by the park, and on the way, chews out everybody who's not following all of her. See, it's the shaming.
Right.
It is more shaming encouraged by people like G.T. Bynum.
And again, I go back to shaming is fine if it's done properly and for the right reasons.
Yeah,
but when you're in other people's business and you're shaming them for something that is obviously not your business, then shut up. And keep it to yourself.
We did a whole show where it was raining and the kids were playing in the rainwater, and the mayor was like, "You're bad, parents. You're bad," shaming the parents. And now here we are. If you don't wear a mask, you're bad.
I believe Bynum's exact words were, "You should be ashamed of yourself."
I think that's
right. Well, here's how bad it is in other places, because a lot of people don't know this. Do you know that Oregon, and I believe some of the other red states have gone this way, or the blue states have gone this way, and that is that they have added to their DHS paperwork, the CPS DHS paperwork, a line that says that you can check that removal is for COVID conditions or COVID
it's a whole new class of
COVID infection in the home. So they are actually taking people out of the home just because someone else in the home has COVID. So they are separating families in Oregon as we speak. I don't know how active it is, but it's definitely on their paperwork, and I got a photo of it. So
I don't want to brag on the show too much, but we've been way ahead of the curve on a lot of these issues.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so we were talking several shows back last year about the fatalism contagion, where everybody's going to fall in line and become panicked based on the resonant frequency of the next guy to you panicking, and we're literally witnessing it as we speak.
Right.
It's literally happening. Back to Bynum, though. Do you guys know if he is a green? Is he a green? What I want to call a green weenie? One of these people that wants to go with the Green Deal type stuff. Is he one of those?
I don't think so. I don't think Bynum is really an ideologue. I think he panders to them.
I think he would. I think.
Well, what he does is he panders to them, and as so many of our listeners point out, Tulsa is heavily invested into the Agenda 21, Agenda 2025, and all of that kind of thing. And that's all part of that agenda. For some reason, our city government is going along with a lot of that stuff. So, yeah, he's a part of that because he was part of the part of all of that while he was on the council, and nothing has changed in his.
Yeah.
So the reason, go ahead, Van.
Well, I was thinking about this earlier today, in fact, and I thought, because I was listening to him on the radio, he's actually was talking, Aaron G, I believe it was, about getting ready for phase 2 of the reopening, that the bars will be opening up here at the end of the week.
Right.
And he talked about his reasoning for the delay and the reason why we need to. He felt like we had done well over the last week and a half since we opened restaurants, and he says there's no reason for us to pull back. And I thought about it. I don't think he's motivated as, the socialist wing of the Democratic Party. My concern is he surrounds himself with people who are just willing to, or is wanting to be accepted and honored segment. And so he is likely to put people in position who would carry those things out, even if he wouldn't.
Yeah, he's like a willing puppet. He's like, I'll be your front man if you'll tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Well, but I don't put him as a puppet, because he's doing these things willfully.
Oh yeah.
So although there may be some puppeteering going on, he's doing it quite willingly on his own, and we need to hold him accountable just by himself for what he does.
Sure.
But the other thing is, I think he's of that swampish mindset. Mm-hmm. The bureaucratic state, swampish, they all have this weird thing. And quite frankly, it doesn't matter what the issue is, just so long as it prolongs and promotes the bureaucratic swamp.
Exactly. Hey, if you're just tuning in, Tom McCay here with both David Van and David Oldham on 3D Politics every Monday at 7 p.m. Join us here every week for the cutting edge information that everybody will be talking about later. Back to Bynum, I got to say, I kind of disagree with you, Oldham. I think that he is a puppet. Him, just like Joy Hoffmeister, she was talking about how the districts are waiting to hear what to do, essentially was my analogy. From up on high, she says, well, they don't know what to do because they're not sure on how to do distance learning. They were waiting to hear whether they were even going to continue the year or not. So what I heard from Joy Hoffmeister was she was waiting from the higher-ups from Washington to tell her what to do before she could tell the districts what to do. G.T. Bynum said essentially the same thing. Shame on you, Tulsans, for not going by what Washington CDC national guidelines has. They know. When I saw GT get voted in for mayor, I didn't think he was going to represent the feds. For instance, if I was mayor, I might even agree with the CDC guidelines, and I would say, hey, do it for the reasons because I think they're a good idea, not because we're waiting for the CDC to do it.
I will take that conversation. I mean, I agree with you to a degree.
I think he's a puppet.
What you're seeing, the MO of all state and municipal bureaucrats who are making these orders, is they are always deferring to somebody above them. And by above them, I mean the municipalities are pointing to the governors are pointing to the feds. Okay, even though the feds are not above the governors, they're actually in parallel, but to make their orders. So they're justifying their own actions by making it look like they are puppets, like they are prone. Somebody above them has given them the order. And Murphy with Tucker Carlson, the governor of New Jersey, said it. He said that's above my pay grade. The justification for the science. And then, hey, I didn't think about the Bill of Rights when I made my decision.
And who does, especially when you're telling kids to clean your room. But let's, we do have an expert on the show. Let's go over to Dr. Van.
That's right.
Science, the 3D Politics Science Lab.
Somebody here has to take responsibility and give an opinion. And I am assuming
like
we haven't been already.
I am assuming the God. I will assume the God complex here and put on my white lab coat in Fauci's absence and say, go back to work, go back to the park, go back to meeting together in communities and families. I want to tell you something. I spoke with my own mother yesterday. It was Mother's Day. I hope you young men, did your best to honor the mothers in your lives. But my youngest brother lives at home still, and he's a flight attendant, and he actually found out just last week. He not only was exposed to, but he had the Wuhan virus, and now has the antibodies. And my mother, who's in her mid-80s, was tested. She never got it, even though she's living in the same home as a 45-year-old man with
Oh,
the virus.
They must have separate bathrooms. Because we know from Ventura, California, that's what it takes.
Yeah, but
I'll get the permit.
You know, so now I've got 2 family members who have survived it, and but you know, we're finding out in Iceland, parents, so many people have had this virus and not had any symptoms, or they did. For my youngest brother, he had symptoms. He had a headache. But he did not have any issues, the lungs filling up. There's a lot we still don't know about this virus. There's a lot, you know, why does it affect some people so radically and some people
Well,
not
I believe
at all?
that I had it in February. I mean, I don't know for a fact, but I had some weird thing that I've never had before.
Right.
So.
But we've got an absence of people willing to take the strong stand, say the buck stops here. And so as you're filling for Dr. Fauci tonight, I'm telling you, you're going to be okay.
Van, I take your word over Fauci's. You know, maybe the coat.
Well,
maybe
I know
coat,
that
that's right.
I know that at one time or another, Van has stayed at a Holiday Inn Express.
That's right.
So that just makes everything okay.
Yeah.
But Shelley Luther, Salon a la Mode. Remember the a la Mode?
Yes.
In Dallas, Texas, is out of jail and back at work, still racking up fines. So far as I know, fines.
Really?
These things we'll talk about more of that later. But but she is. I think she's been released.
Yeah.
But they actually put her in jail, and he sentenced her to a week in jail, and that was directly after Governor Abbott opened up Texas and opened up all salons early over the work that Shelley Luther did. Because she took the stand, she brought the entire state of Texas around and got it opened up for other salon owners and things like that. So it's taking that stand that's necessary. We've got to go back to work, and people just got to do what they've got to do. We have the natural right to earn a living and feed our families, and nobody has the right to tell us we can't.
Is it accurate to say that the judge sentenced her to jail time because she would not apologize to public officials? It wasn't because of all the other stuff. Yeah. He said, you're good to go if that was the thing that crushed her, was if you'll bend over for the state essentially and lose your integrity.
Yeah, Tom, I have not read a statute where the sentence is mitigated by whether or not you apologize. I have not found a single statute.
With that goes to remember, he's wrongly found her guilty of a non-crime.
Yes.
Okay.
Right, which
when it comes to sentencing, what they do is they look at your demeanor and your repentance, the level of your repentance, to determine your sentence. That's what he was doing. The problem was that he found her guilty of a non-crime. So he turned her into a political prisoner, and then his determination was how badly he was going to rack her with punishment was going to be based on whether or not she was going to be reticent.
Okay, but you've got a real problem with that when you offer them in the courtroom that if you will say the magic words, what you're actually doing is you're instigating a perjury. You're giving somebody motivation to say something that's really not from the heart.
Right, you're asking them to deny their own conscience.
Yes.
Well, and just so our listeners know, this is a daily act in court. People plead guilty, no contest, no lo contendere, just because they're afraid of being convicted of something they may not have done.
Right.
It's just easier to go ahead, plead no contest, get off with as minimal a sentence as you can, and get on with life. Otherwise, they're going to rack you.
Right. But the judge here, if he was going to take as a mitigating factor that she was repentant of it, it shouldn't be a suddenly found religion that he gets in front of him during sentencing. It should be things said to the officer upon arrest, or things said in the process of the interrogation or the court proceedings, or a statement from her legal counsel. If a person suddenly finds this religion just before sentencing is handed down, a judge should rightfully discredit that.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
Not that he necessarily knows about it, because they only consider that which is before them in court. So he may not even have been aware of all that she did.
Anything she says in public or says to the prosecutors, the detectives, the arresting officers, through her legal.
But whether he was made aware of it in court is another issue. No, it's obvious that he knew well what was going on. Yeah. But my point is they play their games.
Yes.
So if it didn't come up in court, then he technically doesn't know because it hasn't been entered into evidence.
What this says is that he was looking to make an example out of somebody else, which throws out and discredits their ruling anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Because when you sentence somebody, it should be what sentence is right for this person in this circumstances and stuff, not what sentence is signal broadly.
But let's remember that we're talking about sentencing.
Yes.
This thing should have been thrown out on its ear because she had every right to be doing what she was doing, and there is no crime, no harm, no crime. Nobody harmed.
Van brings up an excellent and kind of an obscure point most people miss, and that is if somebody suddenly comes to Jesus right at the moment of sentencing, this is a telltale sign of opportunism, and they're clearly manipulating the situation for some sort of empathetic appeal. What sickens me about this situation is that the potentate was essentially creating a kind of a faux extortion. Do a trick, roll over, play a little game, and it's essentially a kiss the ring routine from the almighty Pope.
Now, Tom,
and again, this happens daily. And it's not faux extortion. It's out and out extortion.
Trying to be polite, Oldham. Yeah, Van.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I didn't have time. But if you give me a minute, I could repeat what I said with my black robe that's hanging up over here. Because I
no more costume change. We can't afford it on the budget.
Well, hey, they wear costumes when they go to the Capitol.
Absolutely.
We can wear costumes.
There you go.
Because if that's what it takes.
Yeah, because we can't impersonate a police officer, but when a police officer gets in trouble, he says, I was just making a joke. I'm like, arrest him for impersonating a comedian. That's trouble.
Yeah.
If you're just joining us, Tommy McCay right here with 3D Politics every Monday. I've got David Van, SoonerPolitics.org, and of course, David Oldham, ConstitutionalGrounds.com, talking about all those things global, international, national, and worldwide that change.
You're breaking up when you yell at
It's fun, though, isn't it? It's fun, isn't it? God almighty. It's kind of like passing out on a roller coaster and not telling the kids.
I'm just glad he's not yelling at me when he does.
Yeah, I will. I got a whole new thing that I do, a new, not only Citizen Tyrant, which is my old new, I want a T-shirt, it says Citizen Tyrant.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I'm telling you, because God almighty, they're all over the place. But I also want to fly by for Thank a Zero. I want to have a Thank a Zero program where we thank the people who, aren't now been pushed up into that upper echelon of people who said, I just wish I could be a nurse one day. And now you're a nurse, and now we're acting like they fought World War II.
Yeah.
Because they went to war.
Actually, you know what?
But they said they do anyway.
You know what would make a great T-shirt now that we're talking about it? Thank a non-essential for working.
Dang it, David! You just make everything I made easy harder. Thank a zero. That's what it's called. Thank a zero.
I wouldn't know what a zero was.
You just said it. It's just heavy $5 words for a zero.
Yeah. Hey, what do you think of that retired cop in Georgia who went running down the street after someone thinking he was still a cop?
Gladys Knight and the Pips. Just to attack girls.
So people, in case people don't know, a couple of months ago, as COVID was breaking out, this man and his son looks to be in his 30s, maybe
35.
Okay, and father, a retired police officer,
detective, 64,
a black man,
starting to sound like Dragnet.
Looking around.
Just the facts.
They witnessed him just looking around a construction site. No, I don't know about you guys.
No, he wasn't.
No,
what they saw is him jogging down the street. Another video
man,
a block away showed him looking at a construction site, and then just continuing his jog.
I haven't figured out the whole timeline of events yet, but the point is, somebody was looking at a construction site. They got tagged. Somebody called the cop. These guys called the cops. The son called. The father called at some point during the chase, and when they get there, they try to effect an arrest, a citizen's arrest. They get out with a shotgun and a handgun. And in defense of himself, he goes after one of the guys with the handgun. The guy with the shotgun shoots him.
Yes.
And so, and all he was doing at the time was running down the street. These guys jumped ahead of him in their truck, and it's sickening to watch. They have, I mean, come on, the guy was in a t-shirt and shorts. Yeah. What could he have taken that was so valuable that you couldn't even see on his person?
Here,
but it was all about he looked suspicious.
Well, come on, let's not gloss it. Did he obey commands? Did he comply?
That was obviously what he got shot for. He didn't.
He wanted to just comply.
Yeah, and what it really comes down to, I've thought this through, and the old man, the former cop, who had this sense of entitlement that was residual, even though he wasn't wearing a badge anymore, was still acting like he's a cop.
Sure.
My point is this: if it had been uniform officers doing that, nothing would have happened.
Yes.
But as soon as the common citizen does it, it's murder.
And you know, that's pretty much what the cop said, who introduced came out and finally did a press release. Now, mind you, it took nearly 2.5 months, 70 days to arrest this pair. And they've gone through 3 prosecutors. 2 have had to recuse themselves. Both of them said there's no crime here, and they've had to recuse themselves because they have worked with the former cop apparently in the past, and they've been now forced to recuse themselves.
David,
and we've finally gotten to a 3rd prosecutor.
Okay.
And the only reason that anything's moving now is because a video surfaced and got public and went viral.
Van, I'm coming to you. Everybody's seen the video, but what state is this in?
Georgia.
Okay,
Georgia.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah.
The thing, and why am I wearing this coat? Because it exemplifies the idea somebody's got to step up and issue an opinion here. What you saw there with the 2 prosecutors, David, they did not say there's nothing here. I would have maybe had a little more respect for them had they actually had the balls to step up and issue opinion. They instead just recused themselves. They said it's above my pay grade.
But they started out by saying there's no crime here.
I did not see any of that.
Within 24 hours, the reports that I was seeing said within 24 hours, the first prosecutor had said there's no crime, and then when they finally, once they've now gotten the video has gone out, and now the 3rd prosecutor is saying they committed a felony because there's no rightful reason to use deadly force or to stop another citizen unless that pair witnessed a felony.
Yes. But,
and there was no felony, let alone they didn't witness anything.
Okay, so let me fill in the blanks here, David. It was district prosecutors, district attorney's office that recused themselves, and it was finally investigation in Georgia.
You cut out. So what did you say?
The State Bureau of Investigation in Georgia got all the evidence, including the video, and it was the Bureau of Investigation that released the video along with making the arrest.
Oh, did they?
Yes.
Okay, I missed that.
Yes.
Okay.
So you got to commend the State Bureau of Investigation in Georgia doing the right thing, releasing the evidence. Just for no other reason than transparency.
Well, and potentially to influence the jury and influence the public.
I'm sure. Cops do it all the time.
Yeah, and that's not necessarily right.
No.
But by the same token, if you can poison a jury pool, then they can't get a fair trial, and so they can get off on that too. So there's bad. This thing is horrific all the way around. There is not one single step that's been done that's clean.
Okay, but David, would you not agree? The developments over the last week on this bode well for reasserting individual liberties here. That this young man had the liberty to jog down a public street.
Correct.
And that's essentially, and even the things I've posted here in Oklahoma on social media, people said, well, do you know how many miles he was from his home? And I'm like, so we're going back to that Klan ruling of you have to stay in your own neighborhood, black man.
Right.
That's really what they're saying.
You can't shoot a man until it's dark out.
Yeah, and you don't belong. And I said, man, I tell you, it was like a Klan operation.
Well, Van, you bring up an excellent point, and thank you for never mentioning the race. Yeah, anybody should be able to run down the street. It's because this is the problem I have with people who bring up the race issue with me. They say, see, jogging while black. And I'm like, no, see, vigilante injustice. It has nothing to do with your black. Oh, yeah. No, it has zero to do. This is not an injustice because of the color of the man's skin. It's an injustice, all right. But let's not skew where the injustice. Let's hit the hammer right on the native's head.
And let's understand that jogging while black is a violation of individual right.
Yeah.
And just as all other violations of individual right is, the motivation is particularly evil. And that has got to end. People have got to be brought to justice when they do this. what strikes me is now the locals are trying to bring the feds into it for hate crime charges and enhancement of the sentence. And I'm like, they murdered the guy. How do you enhance the death penalty?
And when you enhance it,
there's no enhancement.
And every time you enhance the soup, you dilute it. I mean, you continue to enhance it until it's no longer the charge anymore. Yeah, that is some ridiculous stuff. I do want to go into the story about Tanzania kicking out. Listen to this one. You know, Tanzania, this is out of Reuters. Looks like Giulia Paravicini, May 7th. Headline, Africa Disease Center rejects Tanzania's allegation that its corona tests are faulty. On Sunday, Tanzania President John Magufuli said the imported test kits were faulty after they had returned positive results on goat and a pawpaw among several non-human samples submitted for testing, with technicians left deliberately unaware of their origins. So essentially, what John Magufuli, president of Tanzania, did was he set these boys up for a sting operation. He sent in goat stuff and pawpaw stuff, whatever pawpaw is. And they said, oh, yeah, it's got corona. They never knew it wasn't even human stuff. So Tanzania kicked the World Health Organization out of there. And this is a story talking about how the World Health Organization says, don't they always? Did you guys hear about that story?
No, I had not.
Well,
when you brought it up earlier, yes.
You want to come over?
Yes. A pawpaw is a...
You're not calling a lifeline, are you, Oldham?
I am. I Googled it. It's a fruit. It's a fruit.
Oh, yeah. A fruit.
Unless it's an African name for an animal, but I'm seeing it as a fruit. So they sent in fruit material, and it tested for coronavirus, Wuhan virus, according to Dr. Dave.
I'm just glad that Tom's manning the bureau desk there in Tanzania for us.
Well, I'm very tuned into that.
You know what is interesting is Africa is well known for at times rejecting and disagreeing with the WHO, the UN, things like that. Various African nations have kicked them out for a time. Then they get a big chunk of money and they bring them back in.
Yeah, because they're isolated,
for killing their kids, and because they were getting the rejects from Europe and North America, and they were sending the rejects into third world countries.
Yes.
The stuff like Vioxx that was killing people, they were selling it over there. And going through the UN and the WHO to do it. So there is a nasty tradition of first and second world countries sending these people the rejects. So it's very likely that the Tanzanians got, reject materials.
Well, Oldham, here's what it comes down to, and I said it this way when I was with an organization that was getting a grant, but they were afraid their state grant might be in trouble if David Van kept writing such things as he had been by the board. I said, listen, if I'm going to be a whore, I damn sure I'm not going to be a cheap whore. And that's exactly what Tanzania is saying here. If you're really going to screw with us, you're going to have to pay us more.
Well, now I don't think they're willing to necessarily be paid off, because I haven't seen that.
Well, you started out saying that they paid them more money, and then everything.
It has happened as other nations have stuck to their guns.
Yeah.
And so forth. But it has been in Africa primarily that you see this kind of activity.
I saw Oldham kind of getting the view of the cycle. And I was wanting to comment that I really had never known what you were talking about, Oldham, but I do see a reasonable explanation, because Africa is somewhat isolated from a continental standpoint, just technologically, and so they have a chance to build strong cultural bonds that cannot be broken easily by external forces, to the point that it takes a huge crashing down of global circumstances before you break through that cultural bond that they have locally. And so this is what you're kind of saying, Oldham, is that they have there's a tradition of them bucking some of these global common sense concepts that try to force them around. And so, and then to further your point, when the money then comes in, then they're like, oh yeah, we need the people in control then ease up, and then they force the cultural change to allow I don't want to talk too much with money. Bill Gates. But the thing is, then the money forces the erosion of the cultural bond.
Yeah, well, the companies the countries that have taken the money are just corrupt beyond beyond even what we understand here, and our country is thoroughly corrupt. But they are, I mean, just in your face with the corruption, and I mean, just out and out. So Tanzania, I don't think has had that kind of problem in the past. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm not an expert on Tanzania, but
I just love the fact that it's a tiny little country, you know, small enough to be carpeted, and they're telling the World Health Organization, you know,
yeah, Tom, they're doing something that's very useful here, because a lot of these relief organizations, especially the more leftists with the social agenda, claim to be championing folks like them. Correct. And nothing discredits them more than the people they claim to be the heroes for reject them.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, if you're just tuning in, once again, Tommy McCay here with 3D Politics Live right here on Facebook every Monday at 7 p.m. I've got David Van from SoonerPolitics.org and David Oldham, ConstitutionalGrounds.com. You can catch me at Tommy McCay on Facebook and on Twitter. We handle all the business from the world, the globe, the international and national world, state and local politics to figure out just what's going on in Tom's backyard, because you never know. You know, I got seeds back there for the birds.
Have you started a Liberty Garden yet?
Well, yeah, but it's not working out very well because I won't let them grow at their own pace. Hey, I've got another story out of here from Yahoo News. Matt Troutman, May 10th, the headline, New York City will dispatch, take 3, New York City will dispatch 1,000 more social distancing ambassadors, says Mayor Bill de Blasio. The city will increase its civilian social distancing ambassadors from 1,000 to 2,300 by next weekend, says de Blasio. He said these city employees, holy
how's your job description changing?
Holy crap! I should have read this before. The city employees will hand out face coverings. You know, I'm sure they'll look like this. They're going to hand out face coverings and remind people of social distancing rules. You stay 2 feet away. The enforcement is a last resort, says de Blasio. More and more, the emphasis will be on a communicative, encouraging approach to these social distancing ambassadors. Isn't that nice, boys? Yeah. A communicative approach, which I'm sure all the 6th graders will understand.
Yeah.
I know I did.
Yep.
Oh, my
God.
You
know, and the tricky thing is how they're trying to, where the government cannot do certain things because we got this just nasty little thing called the Constitution getting in their way.
Yeah.
They're using other things like trying to turn your neighbor against you. And de Blasio is known for that. You know, saying, you know, call us, take pictures. In fact, he wanted people to take pictures of people violating his rules. He never got so many genitalia selfies.
Well, he said sex was safe.
Yeah.
My God.
Do you remember we shared several weeks ago their what was it, their letter that came out from their safe sex
safe sex in a lockdown. Yes, and that's not BDSM either.
Well, it was almost erotica, and I gotta say, the porn industry is more honest with their constituents than the politicians are.
Oh, yeah.
You know, when it comes to reality television, you can tell when these things are professional and it's fake amateur. We can see it. You know?
All right.
Well, you know.
Oh my God! I'm embarrassed, man. His screen will go dark here just a second. I'm just trying to keep him entertained, man.
So what we have is the morality police.
Yeah.
You have the paid snitches. You have the I mean, come on. We see the Sharia morality police who are out caning people and handing out fines and chopping off hands and things like that. Arresting women for being out without a chaperone or a veil in certain places. Mm-hmm. You're seeing the same thing now. Now they're starting it. They're going to try to start it and be real nice about it. So we're going to hand the people a mask and talk to them.
Oh, we're going to wean you on.
It quickly goes beyond that into something else. Once people go, there's no here about it because hey, they're just being nice. Yeah. And then all of a sudden they use that infrastructure, that swamp bureaucracy, to then turn on you, and then they start slapping you with all sorts of bad stuff.
They amplify the connotation of law, and the connotation means more than what is written. and they amplify what is more than written, and they go further and further. And Van, I'm sorry to embarrass you with the porn reference, but one of my old jokes is we've got to protect smoking and drinking so the kids can still dance, because the vice is just a gradient scale. And it's true. All of these things are bad, whatever you want to call them, bad, right? Yep. From riding your kid on a motorcycle without a helmet to the porn industry and smoking and dancing and drinking in between. But the point is, at some point, because of the progressive nature, the caustic nature of progressive thinking, there is no end in sight. If you take out the top, then the second in command becomes the top. If you take out the worst guy, then the least nice guy is now the worst guy. There is no end in sight to the progressive nature of it. And that's why we have to put in a barrier and say, okay, these vices are okay. And we stop the bleeding, like dancing and drinking, so that the kids can still dance.
Yeah, Tom, when we were young, when I was young.
Thank you.
I've always been old.
The worst ilk in many societies, many small towns, was that video game parlor.
Oh, my, I worked at one.
Well, what do you know? We got rid of the video game parlor. And it just goes, trouble in River City. It's the pool hall, There's always something. And listen, the political tactics I've learned early on in politics, and this happens especially grassroots politics, is you got to find a demon and ride that narrative to your own political power by finding some demon that you can, turn everybody's attention to, so they're not watching you being the biggest threat to our Constitution.
Oh, absolutely. This is a tactic of tyrants. It's why Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait.
Yes.
So that and why so many things happen. I mean, some people said that's why Bill Clinton bombed the desert in Libya when he was being indicted. He then sent missiles.
Oh, the aspirin factory.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And others have said the same thing about other presidents, and other dictators have done that so that they get the eyes off of them and onto somebody else, and so that the people will stand and clamor for the tyranny that these people want to bring and are desperate to bring.
Yep.
And that's what we're seeing here. And I couldn't agree more with you, Tom, that this is all about there is no law for what they're doing.
Right.
It's a house of cards. I've been saying this now for a while. It's a house of cards that when we can finally expose it, well, I mean, we have exposed it, but when people pick up the narrative themselves and it becomes a narrative, and it's not just us three talking about it, it becomes everybody talking about it. At that point, their house of cards falls in. That's why I say go after the governors, because if you go after the governors, then the municipalities no longer have any cards to play.
Yeah. It's important to know, who your enemy is so that you know how you're battling. In the post-World War II tweets from Hitler, all his notes were that he had troops versus civilians. For people like you and me who aren't in the military business of totalitarianism taking over countries, we think, war is army men versus army men. How many tanks do you have versus how many? No. Hitler was taking over cities, and he calculated how many troops does it take per citizens. Okay, we're talking, and I think it was somewhere like 10,000 troops per 30,000 citizens, and he could easily take over the town.
Oh, right.
Okay. And so this is one of the problems that we have in today's world as we battle totalitarians, is that the people on our side of the individual freedom-seeking people, they think we're fighting a battle of this year, this election, 4 more years, but the totalitarians are affecting the minds of the children going to graduate in 2027 because they screwed them up in 3rd grade with the teachers walkout, and now they're screwed up again with the pandemic. Yeah. And by 2027, it's going to be the stupidest effing group of kids that ever pretended to graduate from high school because they don't even know how to read, and they're in 5th grade right now. And Joy Hoffmeister said, according to the higher-ups, let's just advance them to 4th grade. It's like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Well, Tom, you are absolutely right. And just to add to your point, certainly not take away from it, is that the people on our side don't realize the nature of our war. It's not just that it's long term, that they're playing the long game while we're fighting a holding action, in the short term.
Right.
It's not just that. We don't realize that it's a shooting war, and they're shooting people. I mean, look, we've got people in Georgia being shot. We have a guy in Pennsylvania who's been arrested because he wanted to go grocery shopping without a mask.
Before we got here, Steve Scalise, my God, they freaking gunned him down, Steve Scalise, at the ballpark. If he wouldn't have had an armed guard, we would have been done with him.
Yep.
Well, but
insane.
that wasn't government. That was just a citizen
What
tyrant.
I'm saying is, it's a shooting war. If you're out there on the wrong or right side, you're going to get literally shot at.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct. And the thing is that when they are using law to dictate to us, and the dictates that are coming, well, we're going to talk about that in the next story or two. The dictates that are coming are so horrific, and that it's going to take the barrel of a gun, the wrong end of the barrel of a gun, to make people comply. This is a shooting war.
Yeah.
So we need to, the people on our side need to start waking up, because and we're going to have to start waking up our neighbors who are clamoring for this, because it's coming after them next.
Yeah, and that's important here. If you're willing to make it a rule, then you're willing to use the force of the state to potentially kill people to enact your policy.
Yep.
And you have to understand that, because some people actually take their constitutional rights, their God-given rights that are recognized by the Constitution, and actually live by them. And that great patriot that we all love to quote in third grade, Patrick said, "Give me liberty or give me death." Most of our politicians don't want us to actually take that literal.
Correct.
And so people are dying because they're saying no, and then they're looking to these sworn officers and saying, "Hey, you made an oath to defend my constitutional rights against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Now you become a domestic enemy of both the Constitution and me, whom you vowed to serve."
The reality of a civilized society, I mean, it boils down to the famous movie, Who Shot Liberty Valance? Because you can discuss it and discuss it and discuss it, and eventually it's force meets force, and somebody's going to have to. This is back in the civil rights movement. Who was it that was pushing for violence as opposed to Martin Luther King? And they were saying, "Look, you're not going to do this without violence." And I understand the mindset. I see how it is.
Well, and the beauty is that we learn from people like Martin Luther King and Gandhi that our force can be perfectly peaceful, and we can win. And I encourage people to go that route first. But let's understand, as Thomas Jefferson said, that at times the tree of liberty must be watered with the blood of tyrants and patriots.
What do you got before we get out of here?
This is important. Something happened in Australia on Friday, and then again on Saturday, and it hit social media in the United States, mostly on Sunday. And a woman was down, I don't know which city it was, but she simply had a poster board sign expressing her disapproval of something. It was a sandwich sign, one in front, one in back.
Right.
She wasn't doing anything other than standing there with these signs, and she had her 4-year-old boy with her. And the police came up to her, wanted to know her name. She would not give them her name. They then arrested her. Her child started bawling hysterically. It turned into the biggest ruckus. It was all caught on video.
Yep.
And, you're hearing all kinds of comments on social media that she shouldn't have brought her son down to that kind of an event. And I said, she was not confronting anybody. She was peacefully expressing her free speech. And they said, now this is Australia. They do not have the kind of constitutionally protected rights that we have here. And the right to remain silent is not there. You get this, Tom. They said the municipality refused to give them a permit for that demonstration. In Australia, you cannot dissent with the government unless they give you permission to
may I do
so. Exactly. Hello, Soviet Union.
Exactly.
And so I'm saying it was the police who were the aggressors there, because no crime had been committed. Nobody had even been harassed until they started using force.
Well, even before a crime. I mean, let's say that crime is a word that could be discussed in court of law, because we're going to talk about what a crime. Right. But no violence. There was no violence. There was no crying. There was no violence. There was no trauma. No one was being submitted to immense, horrible feelings of, oh my God, the day has changed in a horrible way until the cops got there.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden the kid's day changed and forever his life is scarred.
We see that in California. We see that all over the United States too now. And remember, we have the constitutionally protected, or the constitutional protections in place that specifically guarantee us the right to assemble.
Right.
Yeah.
And that has been suspended? Yeah. Since when? How? Yeah. I mean, again, a house of cards based on lies and based on the force of the goon squad who is willing to step up and disavow their oath as well. And I will say, because I'm desperate to want to support the police, but I will support the police and the judiciary only so far as they support the Constitution.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that is the dividing line. If you support the Constitution, I am behind you 100%.
Yeah,
if you do not, you are not a policeman. You are a criminal with a badge, and that makes you a federal criminal.
The true central, where the power resides, our founding fathers taught us this, is in public opinion. You can have 1,000 laws and 1 billion police, and the power resides in public opinion. And so this is why it's important for 3D Politics to be on social media. Yep. It's important for us three to be individually out there pushing our view of what truth is, because we've got to sway public opinion to what is reasonable toward private property, individual ownership, and protection of it. Guys, we've got to get out of here. We're over time. What else have we got before we go?
Court updates.
Yes, let's hit it.
One, the court case by Frank Urbanek and his clients against City of Guthrie got thrown out of the Western Oklahoma District Federal Court. Don't know if that's going to get appealed upward, because people have been denied justice now by both the city leaders and now by the court system itself. Court update number 2 is actually the courthouse update. What we've got, I listened this morning to the Oklahoma City County Assessor. He said, I can't see you down at the courthouse there where my assessor's office is, because the district court judge closed the building, which tells me there's an usurpation of power. They need to, the county needs to take the building back. It doesn't belong to the state district court system and to the Oklahoma Supreme Court. The building belongs to the county. Hello, county commissioners, take your building back.
And assessor, go to work.
Yes,
it's your office. They cannot keep you out. And this is it goes back to everything else. I mean, when in California you saw them being run off of public property, you saw protesters being run off of public property. In Idaho, you see a woman arrested for trespassing in a public park. How do you do that?
Right.
She committed no crime except allowing her kids to use the facility of the jungle gym equipment.
Right.
And here we have people taking ownership and acting like they are de facto rulers and that they own this property and can dictate how this property is going to be used, and just not the case. It is public.
Right.
Take it back. Let's get this thing straight.
Here's the important thing, and I know we need to get out of here, Tom, is that the law says in Oklahoma that the county sheriff provides protection and order for the district courthouses that meet in that county. And that would apply if court was in session. But with no docket, no judges, no juries, none of that happening, it's no longer a facility, at least for the time being, for the district courts to even exist. They have gone out. They're gone. So therefore, the building now serves the other functions of the county, and the county sheriff needs to take their orders from, or they could just leave. We don't even need them there.
No, you don't need sheriff there.
Right. And get rid of those metal detectors. We don't need them to go look at our land records.
Make some money.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, hello, Kevin Calvi, Brian Mann. Hello to our own here in Tulsa and all the other courthouses of Oklahoma. County commissioners, that's your county facility.
Yep.
And if the courts aren't meeting, they have no say.
And if the public's behind them. See, that's where the public power comes. If they know the public will support them, they'll go take them.
Yes.
Well, and remember that the public is supporting lawlessness when this happens.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because again, there's no law for this. And it still remains illegal because our consent only extends to what we have passed lawfully, which is the Constitution
Yes.
and laws made in
Yeah.
pursuance thereof.
Yeah.
Beyond that, the public has no right to consent to some other lawlessness.
Yeah, Tom, none of this applies if, in fact, the county clerk and the county assessor and, and the rest of them, if they actually are hiding behind the district court judge, and, in fact, they don't want to be open to the public, and they just want to blame somebody else for making the decision.
Right.
Well, remember, that's what they're all doing. They're all pointing somewhere else. They're not standing up and saying, I made this decision. This is, buck stops with me. I'm it.
Right.
That's
right. GT Bynum is waiting on the CDC to tell us what we're going to do. I didn't vote for that.
Right. Before that, it was the governor. Then when that got taken away, now he's going back to the CDC thing. And the CDC is only a recommendation. It doesn't give him any authority. So we need to call them on this thing. And I know we're not going to get to it tonight, but we need to maybe even do one of our Thursday specials, special on the Trace Act and HB 6666 in the U.S. Congress. Yeah. Because people are concerned about it. We need to talk about that sort of thing. So.
Yep. Well, as we get out of here, remember it was GT Bynum who brought us Vision 2025, which gave us not only the tax increase that's coming. See, Tulsa city sales tax is going up by 62.5% July 1st. No phase-in. GT Bynum voted, promoted, pushed on us a tax increase that we haven't even seen yet in the same package that he pushed the Gathering Place. Now, the Gathering Place probably has an occupancy number. I don't know what it was before COVID, but what I know is that the Tulsa Collective pitched in tax money to collectively purchase a park that would occupy a number of people. And after COVID, we're not going to get that same investment. Yep. We're not going to get that investment. And GT Bynum pushed not only the tax increase that's coming July 1st, 2021, but he pushed the Gathering Place on us. Yep. And he got rid of that fine institution across the street right there on Riverside that apparently was a replica of Mount Vernon or something like that. But they destroyed a fine Tulsa icon and put in the plastic Gathering Place that we can't even use right now. And when we go back to using it, we won't be getting our full investment, which is why not only GT Bynum was a bad idea, but socialism, collective ownership, and all these jewel properties, these crown properties we have that we collectively pay for that we can't own. And the first thing they do is pre-ration our ability to get at what we paid for. With the unemployment, what they're calling unemployment, it's thank you, Oldham, it's prohibition of work, okay? They're not regulating anything. They prohibited us from working, and now they're using our money to pay us back for what they're calling unemployment. It's our money. They made us quit making it, and they're saying, how about if we use our money to pay you back? It's absolutely insane.
What is that? What is that? The law of entropy. You never get back the same as you put in.
Right.
It's why you can't have a perpetual motion machine. It's why socialism always fails.
Right. Just understand, all you people who missed out on me in 2016, you're suffering now. The Gathering Place and your raised taxes, and you're living inside. And one more note: if CO2, carbon dioxide, is a poison, why are they making us wear a mask that makes us suffer a high poisonous atmosphere? If carbon dioxide is a poison, which it's not, but if you're going to be consistent, if you're green and you think carbon dioxide is a poison, you better not be wearing a mask because you're ridiculously foolish. That's all the time we got tonight. Tommy McCay right here, 3D Politics Live, every Monday on 7 p.m. I got David Van, SoonerPolitics.org, and David Oldham on constitutional grounds.
That's Dr. David Van.
Dr. David Van, sorry. Dr. Science Troll to you. Tommy McCay right here on Facebook and Twitter. We'll see you next week on Facebook Live, 3D Politics.
All right.
Good night.